Hi, this is Ryan Miller from Modern Babylon Culture Contrarian. I have a video that I wanted to share with you, and I just wanted to give it a little bit of context before it gets started. A friend of mine had done a number of right to know law requests in order to view public records, to come in and visually inspect them. And after repeated denials and an appeal to see these public records, he was granted permission to come in to an administrative office to view the records. And I was contacted to see if I'd be willing to come and participate and oversee and participate in viewing these documents. And I had made this individual aware that it's not unusual when you go into a public servant, public facilities, that you are going to receive multiple barriers to accomplish things that you are lawfully allowed to do. And they make references based upon policies or laws or misrepresentation of the laws. And we have a duty to correct when they make errors or misstatements or misrepresentations of the law. But when we do that, the public servants aren't often trained on how to deal with the citizen who is standing and asserting their rights. And what happens is an emotional response. It's a challenge of their authority. It's called contempt of their authority. And they will double down in standing of their authority, and they will deny you access to what you're lawfully allowed to obtain. Now, the Supreme Court, which I teach about, tells us how we have to navigate this process. And there's many Supreme Court protections that public servants are given, that it's not reasonable that they understand the laws. They're not required to speak the truth to us. And they have all these protections, and you have this blanket of qualified immunity. And it's a very complex, laborious process in order how we hold our public servants accountable. And this contempt of authority is a big conflict. It's an emotional conflict. It's a battle. And the Supreme Court tells us that we need to be belligerent in our complaint when we're confronting public servants which aren't following the law. If we are not belligerent in our complaint, we are consenting and complying and surrendering to something which we may not be lawfully obligated to do. So in this instance, we were coming in to record public documents, photograph, photocopy, videotape, matters of public record. Now, the public servants were making a claim that they can prevent the duplication of copyright protected material. And there's an element of truth to that copyright does provide a portion of protection. And understanding copyright law, I can't expect a public servant to understand copyright law and fair use doctrine, and that they had probably been given advice from legal counsel, such as a solicitor or an attorney, that says you can deny people access to this material, stating that it cannot be duplicated based upon copyright law. And that's a reasonable thing for an attorney to say, to push off that responsibility and say, just say this, the citizen will not be able to do it, and you can maintain the protection of this material. Now, unfortunately, fair use, according to the fair use doctrine, allows public documents to be reproduced. And this is, again, a whole other conversation that I can speak about copyright law. So I know I have a lawful right under the First Amendment, under free press, to gather information. I'm able to record information. I can use it for educational purposes. I can use it to disseminate to interested parties. And I can even use facsimiles or forms or representations of that material in a parody or a comedic art. These are all elements of exceptions under the copyright law. Violating copyright law is if I were to take the full works of this author, put it under my name, and put it out into the public domain. That would be fraud. Be flat out fraud. But we have grown accustomed that we can go to a public library for our child to do some research, pull out a book off of the shelves, run off a couple photo pages of the photocopier of a couple of pages out of the book, bring it home, and they can do the research paper and create citations. And when they're all done, crumple up that paper and throw it away. No copyright violation. It's approved by law under the fair use doctrine. That's why we have photocopying machines inside of libraries. So I had an encounter where I was attempting to stand on my First Amendment right. Fortunately, they didn't demand that I surrender my Fourth. But I've created a short video outtake of what transpired during this encounter. Admittedly, I have edited this video. This video is over an hour long, and there's a lot more conversation which took place between myself and the public servants in this video. But I want you to pay close attention to some of the things that I said that I put in the edited video. Read some of the highlights I put in there and see if you can catch some of the things that I pointed out during this encounter with public servants. And most notably, look at the behavior of the public servants. Their authority was challenged. They have a duty, according to their policy, to state their name, who they report to. I could even ask an employee ID number. But that didn't happen. And I look at the way I was treated. Now, we have grown accustomed to being treated this way. If you were an employee working for your employer and you conducted yourself in the manner in which these individuals did, you'd be brought up and you'd be sanctioned. You'd have a day off. You'd have some other consequences, and you'd have something written in your personnel file. Public servants don't have that kind of consequence. They're immune from those consequences because they're inside the bubble in the domain of isolation of the public service protection. We never know what the disciplinary action is, the consequences when we file a complaint. So a complaint, just consider that deep sixth. We can't hold our public servants accountable for the way that they treat us. And am I upset at the way that I was treated as represented in this video? No, because it's become part of the culture of the relationship between public servants and private citizens. This is kind of my default expectation. But I just want to say what happened here and how I went about what happened during this encounter has established me in the status of a plaintiff, and the individuals that I encountered as a defendant, for them to honor their role in serving the public, gaining access to public information. Do I want to be plaintiff? Absolutely not. Do I want them to be defendant? Absolutely not. If you were to listen to the entirety of the video, you will hear in great specificity and detail how I wanted to be respectful, honorable, and loving when I was attempting to reason with people who, in this case, could not be reasoned with. So I hope this is illuminating to you. I would very much like it if this video could be liked, could be shared. If you could subscribe to my channel. There's so much more that I try to provide, but this video, which I would love to get out in greater detail, it's really not needed if I'm shouting to a hallway of empty ears. This is meant for many ears to see that the 3-minute speeches that we're doing, the petitions we're holding, the protesting placards we're holding, the small meetings we're having together that we're complaining about how bad this system is, I agree. It is a problem. But the way we address the problem is by holding them accountable. This is one step of quite a lengthy process if I desire accountability. If I want to actually see the documents in plain view and be able to show you what those documents are lawfully, how much I must do to achieve what I'm lawfully allowed to see. And everybody else is not willing to take on this particular step. Why? Because it looks strange. It requires a tremendous amount of knowledge. That knowledge is the fortification to have the courage. And then you get this, you're kind of attacked. After this encounter, walking outside, one of the people said, "I had never anticipated this much hostility." I said, "That's unfortunate, because the closer you get to it, the more hostile it becomes. And when you cross the line of hostility, you enter into the domain of retaliation." And these are things that I try to make people aware of, that what I am doing here, do not do. Don't do it. Until you have the ability to understand the breadth, depth, and magnitude of the consequences of going down this path, don't enter down this path. And not entering down this path, doing all of the things such as the 3-minute speeches and the protesting and the meetings, don't hold out a lot of hope that that's going to change the root of the problem. The root of the problem starts with what I'm about to show you today. Please like, share, subscribe, put it out there, allow people to see. Thank you so much. Ryan, Cultural Contrarian. Click on my social links, visit my website. I have a free newsletter. Just put your email address in and read the newsletter. I highlight some of the things that I'm teaching. Have a great day, and thanks so much.
12:30 appointment with Carol DeLuca.
Check that out.
Yeah, wondering how they did that.
That's kind of cool. It's like packing.
So who's looking at the second step stuff?
We're doing everything together.
Okay, just no camera.
Can we take it into public then?
What do you mean, can you take it into public?
If you're saying no camera.
You can't take pictures of anything that's in here.
Well, I'm having the challenge with that question. Why can we not record it?
Our attorney said no cameras. They talked to the copyrighted, it's all copyrighted material.
I have the fair use document right here. So I just a question. Can I get a photocopy of this while he's looking at that? This page right here.
You want that page?
That page.
John, will you come and listen to something for a second? So, we have...
First, I want to pay for that. So, Jim, can you pay her for that?
I'll do that.
Okay.
So we have materials.
Can we do this first before we talk to them?
Yeah. I don't know if I can make it just reset. I don't know this one very well. You just want this page.
Just want that page, yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna let me.
Close. I mean, just.
Oh, it wants that off there. Oh, now it's happy.
Perfect. I'll just put that on the shelf. Thank you. Now go ahead.
Okay. So, would you so the materials from second step in the conversation copyrighted material, and no cameras is to be in there recording. So you take it from here.
Sure. So you just reproduced copyright protected material on state-owned equipment. You just did it. There's a fair use doctrine. Are you familiar with the fair use doctrine of copyright? Okay. So I'm going to do this out of respect, honor, and love. Okay. And I apologize. I have many ADA disabilities. Some of them invisible, some of them visible. So I'm going to try to moderate my speech and control my manner. So I want to be respectful and give that information. Copyright law is to protect the works of the copyright owner from being reproduced, distributed, and compensated for. Under fair use, I have the ability to take copyrighted materials and use it in parody, education, and to disseminate to other interested people. Not in its entirety, but I can take aspects of it. The only violation of copyright is if I take the entire works, reproduce it, and sell it. Fair use law states I have the fair use doctrine which states that. So the mere copying, as we did right here, is not a violation of copyright law. So you didn't violate copyright law. So it was kind of a little bit of a switch. So I am allowed to reproduce copyright protected material, as in every public library. You have a photo machine for students to take chapters of books, photocopy them, take them home, do the research, and they're not violating copyright law. So regardless of that document,
having the copyright on it. I have the ability to record it, interpret it, represent it, or parody it.
I'm gonna stop you because I'm gonna challenge it. Legally, we were told you cannot.
So,
If you want to challenge it, too, let me know.
so
You're not doing it.
so very good. So it is not the schools, you're relying upon feedback from your solicitor.
As a solicitor for that company.
Correct.
We told us we could not allow you to do it.
So it's my duty as a private citizen, when you're getting false, unlawful counsel and advice, according to the law, to inform you of such.
Thank you for the, I
So,
appreciate
let
your
me
information.
let me take a little bit further. And if you choose to act based upon that fraudulent information, which I'm telling you of now,
Okay?
then I'm giving you the opportunity to verify that they have the lawful authority to restrict what just happened here under fair use. Now, I can't make you do that. But if you choose to affirm, which I'm notifying you now, an infringement of my constitutional rights, you're acting in your private person capacity.
Okay.
You're not acting in your official capacity. So what I would like for you to do, if you're going to make that position, I'm going to ask you to do this of your own free will.
Sure.
I want you to state here.
Absolutely not.
So your name, sir?
I'm done, sir.
Your name, sir?
I'm done.
Were you able to make a phone call?
I was told I didn't need to. The lady saw what they needed to see.
But I was the one that expressed the concern that I would like to have my rights
And I
restored.
will call. They told me I didn't need to. They wanted to.
And that's fine for them. So consider me as a separate
I will
issue.
make a phone call.
Would you like the fair use doc?
I need nothing that you hand me.
Okay. Can I say that I've attempted to be reasonable with you and correct you on the representation of the law? And that you've rebuked my attempt to be reasonable? And I'll just leave it at that. No need to respond. Thank you. But if you talk to your attorney, that's fine.